Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Identity Love podcast. I am Tracy Konane. I am a life coach and identity specialist for folks who have lost themselves in relationships and in life and don't know how to be themselves. And so I not only help you to find out how to be yourself, but how to enjoy being yourself, to see yourself as special and to realize and bring to life who you really are. This episode is about what happens when you shift from being in a relationship where you are pleasing them and always being preoccupied with them and shift into a place where you are starting to put yourself first. You are starting to find your own identity. You are starting to live and be in a whole new way in this relationship. A while back, I had polled you folks on Instagram and I asked, what is the thing that most scares you about putting yourself first, about putting your identity first? And something that kept popping up from so many people is them worrying how their partner is going to feel about them putting themselves first. They are worried about being abandoned. They have a lot of fear around what's going to happen once you start making this shift. And this is a very valid concern because we are doing all these things for our partners or for whoever it is that we're pleasing. And this is how it's been for so long. And this is the only way that we think it works because we've been putting in so much work on this thing, on this relationship. And so we feel like if we are going to start going in a different direction, where we are letting go of trying to control how we are and how this person feels about us, that it feels so risky and dangerous to do so. To me, it felt like I was risking it all. And this relationship was just going to disintegrate the moment that I took my focus off of it. I felt like it's something I had to really work hard to maintain and that I had to be a certain way in order to keep this thing going. So I've been asked to share parts of my own relationship, my own experience of transitioning from the partner pleasing to identity love and putting myself first. And I totally want to inspire this and I want to encourage this and give you some hope and give you some insight. But at the same time, I really want to make sure that I am clear that not all relationships are the same. So I just wanted to preface this by saying there is a myth that is going around that is you cannot love somebody else unless you first love yourself. And I've had clients ask me this. They said, do I have to have self-love first in order for me to love someone else? And I personally believe, no, you do not need to have your own self-love completely figured out for you to feel love and love someone else. And I know this because I myself had not loved myself. I, in fact, thought self-love sounded gross. It grossed me out, but I still could love other people. I loved somebody else from this place. So you can totally love somebody else without first loving yourself. But the thing is that love, the love that you feel, the love that you give towards this person is going to be the same quality as a love that you feel for yourself. So what I noticed is that when I was lacking self-love, the quality of the love that I felt and that I gave to the other person was lower quality because I was coming from a place of also needing them to give me something. So it was tinged with jealousy and neediness and taking things too personally, taking everything that they're doing as a sign, whether they're for or against our relationship. And so the type of love that I was able to experience and give was lowered. It was lowered in quality. So yes, I still felt love, but the quality of the love and the healthiness of the love was diminished because I didn't have my own self-love. And the reason why I'm talking about this on this episode is because we often, as people pleasers and partner pleasers, we often do not consider our partner's self-love. We look at our partner, we often put them on a pedestal. We think that of course they love themselves because look at them, they're so great. And it sort of clouds our judgment and it clouds our view of reality and how someone can actually feel about themselves. And when you start to change yourself in your relationship and you start to put yourself first and prioritize your own self-love, the way that your partner reacts to this is not based on you per se, more as it is based on their own relationship with themselves. If their self-love is lacking, if they have their own neediness inside of them, where they are needing you to be a certain way towards them that they've gotten used to through the years, they are going to start to feel like they're taking it personally or getting jealous or making it mean something about the relationship once you start to go your own way and start to do things your own way and no longer be catering to them. The way that your partner reacts to you has everything to do with them and their own self-love, and less about if the things that you're doing for yourself is right or wrong or not. And I don't want you to use your partner's reactions as a sign of whether you should stop doing something or keep doing something. They are their own contained person. Their own reactions are coming from themselves. So I just wanted to preface that because my relationship I got with my current boyfriend during a time when I was actually ready to be single for a long time. I had just gotten out of a very intense, turbulent relationship, and I was ready to just be by myself, find myself. I had done a lot of self-love towards the end of that relationship that gave me the strength to get out of there and to start to envision something better for myself. And it just so happened that this guy, I met him during the end of this previous relationship. And during this time, I had done enough of my own identity, love, and self-work to know exactly what I was looking for. I was no longer going to just go with anything that came along. I was going to be very picky. We started just hanging out casually. And the more I got to know him, the more he was checking off all these boxes. And I was really in awe that people like this exist. I didn't know that you could have somebody who was good looking and intelligent and have his own life together, has his own stuff together. And he's also not jealous or possessive or playing games or needing to go and flirt with other people to keep his self-esteem up. He had his own self-esteem, his own life. He was confident, but not in like a cocky way. It was just this quiet, genuine self-confidence. He didn't need to get extra attention or put on airs. And he seemed very healthy, and we seemed compatible. And so I was just like, all right, let me just see where this goes, because this seems like a really great person. I was already doing my self-love work, and I specifically chose him because he was giving me all the green flags, all the things that I had never really experienced before in a relationship. And I said, this feels right to me. I am going to take a chance on this. So this dynamic doesn't work for everybody. Maybe you do not want somebody who's so independent. Maybe you want somebody who you're going to start a family with, and you're going to spend a lot of time together, and you're going to have the same schedules, and you're going to have to agree to be together for a lot of the time. That is totally fine. And so another thing I wanted to get across here in this episode is that my relationship dynamic works for me. It works for my soul, for my preferences. And I don't want it to influence you and think, okay, maybe I should prefer this. It's just up to you. You have to really listen to yourself. Each relationship dynamic is so different, and it depends what you are looking for. In the past, I definitely thought that I wanted somebody who we felt enmeshed. We felt like the same person. We did everything together. It felt like we were soulmates in every aspect, like twins doing everything together. That's what I just assumed it was like. And I thought that that's what I wanted. But as I grew up and changed more and experienced more of that, I realized that that's not really what it is that I want. So the more that you grow into yourself, your own preferences for what you think you might want in a relationship may shift. So always keep an open mind. That's really important to have a healthy identity, is to keep your mind open and just pay attention to what feels good as you evolve, because you're not meant to stay the same. So my boyfriend, being the way that he wants me to be my own person as well. I realized from the very beginning that it's not going to work out if I am over here following him around, waiting for him to give me attention, playing little games with him where I'm like, oh, no, I don't want your attention, but then I get upset if I'm not getting it. He wasn't having any of that from the beginning. He's just very respectfully saying like, hey, I got a lot of work. He has a whole illustration career. He has creative projects on the side that he's working on. And this is his whole thing. This is his life. And he is ambitious and independent and has a lot of things that he wants to accomplish in his life. Deep down, I wanted to be more like that too, where I was doing all these things in my life and following my own whims and being ambitious in my own way and having my own things going on. And I was still working on that. And I knew that I would have to develop that and I'd have to become a fuller version of myself, my own independent version of myself, in order to stay in this relationship in a healthy way that works. So in the beginning, I don't think he understood what I was dealing with because I never talked about it, of course. I barely understood what I was dealing with and I was ashamed of it. So there's no way I was going to tell him what was going on. But I was very determined to work on healing for myself and for the relationship. And if the relationship didn't work out, I knew that it was only going to serve me in whatever would come after that. And so even with all this determination, and even though this relationship got off to a much more healthy start than my previous ones, as the first few years passed and we moved in together and we moved from Hawaii to the mainland together and we're living together and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life because what I thought I wanted to do and what the plan was, I felt like deep inside that was not what I really wanted to do. So I was going through a major identity crisis. And during this time, I could feel myself slipping back hardcore into my old ways where I was clinging and just fixating on him. We moved twice in 2 years. I didn't know anybody. I had to make new friends both times. So there was many lonely nights where he was the only one that I knew and that I could get comfort from. And I could just feel myself really starting to cling and really starting to lose my own identity and try to get it from him. I was just worried about so many different things that I started to drink heavily. And it was a difficult time where I knew I was spiraling downwards and I had to do something about it. He would travel for work and go on all these trips. And when he left, I would just be sitting over here feeling like I didn't even know how to function properly. I didn't have any hobbies of my own. I didn't have anything that I felt like would prop me up and keep me alive and functioning while he was not there. And I knew this was a problem. So I'm just telling you how bad it was in the first half of the relationship. And so he was probably used to me sitting around and just dropping everything the moment that he came into the room or the moment that he had some free time because he was so busy with work. I would just drop everything and make time for him. And he was also used to me kind of clamming up and doing the whole thing where he could tell I was upset, but I wouldn't say anything. And he had to sort of just wait it out or wait till I say something. And it felt awkward. When I started to say, okay, this cannot go on anymore. I have to save myself from this once and for all. So I've been up and down through all these different relationships. And this was the point where I had reached a new low. I'm like, it's now or never. I have to start to do this. I have to figure out what it's like to be myself. I have to figure out what it is to enjoy myself and to put myself first and to actually prioritize self-love and figure out what that actually is, what that actually feels like if I'm going to bet on myself and if I'm going to put my best foot forward for also my relationship, because I know that this is a healthy one and I'm the unhealthy one here. I'm the one who needs to change. So not saying that he's perfect, but I'm just saying that I knew that I had to take responsibility for my own work and for what I needed to do if I knew I was giving it my best shot for myself and for us. So when I started to do things differently, here's what happened. One of the first things that I did was to speak up more for myself. Because before I was so meek and wanting to just make sure that as long as he was agreeing and I was being agreeable, everything was fine. And there was times where I felt like he would, not to be rude, I think he was just so passionate about whatever we're talking about, where he would kind of interrupt me or talk over me or keep talking when I was trying to talk. And this really, really, really annoyed me. But I didn't say anything about it because I was just trying to be so pleasant and not rock the boat. So I started to say things about it. I started to say, hey, you interrupted me. And he'd be like, oh, okay, sorry. And I kept repeating it and letting him become aware of what he was doing. And he took it very well. I was the one who was so nervous and felt so awkward from doing it. But over time, I started to feel a lot more natural at just speaking up. And even when we were having philosophical debates and stuff like that, which we love to do, I noticed that I would start to pipe up and say things, even though they were slightly contrary to whatever it was that he was saying. And I would say it in a very straightforward way, where I was allowing myself to have a voice and to speak up in these things. And I had to repeat these things over and over, and I had to show him a new dynamic. You have to let the relationship adjust to a new dynamic, a new rhythm, a new energy. Allow yourself to just do it little by little and see what happens, see how you feel, see how the relationship feels. But over time, he started to listen more. He takes it very well. And I noticed that what has changed is that he listens now and respects my opinion more, because before he didn't realize that I had my own opinion. Before I was just so meek and quiet about stuff that I think he didn't even realize that there was a lot of things that I could add to the conversation. And this is something that I found really interesting, because up until that point, I think I had this belief that to be compatible is to be the same as much as possible. We have to agree on the same things. We have to have the same preferences. We have to have the same way of being in the relationship. And if he wants to go somewhere, I have to want to go there too, or else that's some kind of sign of incompatibility, and somebody else might be more compatible with him because they want to go with him. So I was trying to keep everything so the same, even though I knew that I wanted to be interesting in my own person. I was so afraid of doing that because I somehow thought that to do something slightly different would break the bond or the connection between us or something like that. And that has not been the case. It has made me more of an interesting person to talk to be around. And same with just speaking up in many areas in general. The more that I started to voice my opinion and say, hey, I want to go here during the weekend, or I want to go and do my own thing next month or something like that, the more that I got into my own interests, the more that I wore my own thing, the more that I had more interest on the side, the more that I had to bring to the table as far as something different and interesting to talk about. Because I believe that before this, a lot of it was just me sitting around listening or kind of nodding or interjecting little things, and it was not my full self. And so he wasn't getting the full experience, so to speak. For the right person who wants you to be your full self, this is going to be a great thing, because they're going to get to hear something new each time that they talk to you. They're going to get to bring something interesting to the table. You're going to get to talk about what you did with your friends, or what you found out when you were doing your own solo excursion, what happened when you went to the class, or what you were working on and how your projects are going and what you did while they were gone. Again, when you are with somebody who wants you to be true to yourself, who is secure enough in themselves, who has their own self-love, and they want you to have your own self-love, they are mature enough in their self-love to not feel threatened by you going off and doing all these things on your own. You're going to bring so much interesting stuff to the table. So that's how that went. Is I feel like that really added something new and better to the relationship. And I felt so much more expressed and less resentful, because I was actually speaking my mind. I was actually speaking up about things that bothered me. I was actually communicating. and risking him getting put off by something. And in return, what happened was I didn't have all this built up resentment that would come out all of a sudden in this emotional outburst. So I no longer sat around clamping down, keeping silent, and him being like, what's wrong? And I'm like, nothing. Like before, I no longer sat around and felt like I couldn't say anything, and I was just mad quietly, and he had to either figure it out or he had to wait till I had an outburst. That didn't happen anymore because I was relieving the pressure each day by actually speaking my mind. And a lot of it came from my own communication as well. It wasn't just me laying down the law angrily. It was me communicating and saying, hey, this is important to me. A lot of it's just communication and how it works for your relationship. In my experience, this only added to the quality of the relationship. Another big thing in our relationship was me getting my own schedule. Me going to bed earlier because he likes to stay out late. He likes to go out. And I used to gladly go and join him on that because that's what we used to do back when we met. I was a bartender and we would just do all these things together at night. And so it was painful. It was so painful to me to decide that I wanted to listen to my true soul, which was telling me enough of this, enough of running out every time he's out, enough of staying up late when you know you prefer to wake up early. This is going to be a shift. It's going to be a dynamic change. And it's going to be hard because this is what you're used to and this is what he's used to. And I was so afraid that he'd take it the wrong way, or he'd be sad and lonely, or he would think, oh, she's boring now. I want to go and find somebody better who likes to stay out late, even though that's totally not the way that he ever says anything at all. But I had all these fears inside of, oh my God, what's going to happen if I stop sharing this quality time with him at night? And that's another thing is our love language. We both have quality time. And to me, quality time was going out on our late night dates and staying up late, drinking. So this was such a huge thing that scared me so much. And how it worked out is I told him, I communicated again, and I said, hey, I really want to prioritize waking up in the mornings. I want to prioritize my sleep. I'm going to have to turn down hanging out tonight. Maybe we can go out for an early dinner on Friday instead. We can have lunch together. I was communicative and I was explaining exactly why I was doing it and what we could do instead. Not to people please him, but to communicate what I was doing, because this is an important shift in the dynamic of the relationship. I didn't want to just leave him hanging, but it hurt me. It was so sad at first. It felt so scary, so unnatural. But because he is who he is, he understood and he said, hey, I get it. I have my own individual me time when I go out walking. That's what he told me. He's like, if you're not there, it's okay. He is willing to adjust to me. He was very open to me exploring different sides of myself, changing up the way that I did my hair, changing up the way that I do my clothes, changing up the way that I go and do things in my life. I went and took burlesque classes. I went and got into different things that made my schedule different because he's living his own life where he wants his own freedom to do that in his own life too. He doesn't judge me for it. We are open to adjusting for each other. And that's how it's been. And I feel like that also relieved so much of my own resentment. Once I adjusted to a new schedule, a new norm, and I realized, okay, he's still coming home to me. He's still being the same to me. Everything is fine. I had some bad experiences in previous relationships where things wouldn't have gone well if I decided to stop doing that. And so again, it just depends on how your partner feels about themselves. How much self-love and self-security do they have within them? Are they okay with you changing and you going down your own path? Another thing that I changed was me expressing myself fuller as far as my own personality, for the way that I dress, the things that I say, the way that I say things, the way that I show love. I feel like because he's more of a reserved, well-behaved person, I felt self-conscious when I would be exuberant or overly cuddly or overly silly. And I thought, oh my gosh, he is not like this at all. He probably wants a woman, like a ladylike person who is very proper and doesn't act like a little excited kid. And maybe I should just tone it down. But I actually used to think that I should talk more like in a higher register and sound more feminine and sweet because I thought, men would like that better. But that's not how I talk. I actually talk like this, and I swear, and I'm going to say weird, silly things. And I let that side come out of me more. And what happened was nothing. Nothing. I was just me around him. And I think he likes the contrast because here's something that he said early on in the relationship that kind of blew my mind. So maybe it might blow yours if you're thinking like this. Because he's an artist, and because I have always loved art, but I'm not a professional in any way, I thought, oh my gosh, he probably wants someone as good as him. He probably wants someone who can do art just as well as him. And he's going to think my art skills are subpar, and he's going to find that not attractive. He would rather be with another artist. This was going on in my brain early on. And on one of our dates, he's like, I'm not really that interested in being with somebody who's doing the exact same thing in the exact same way as me. It's like, I don't find that interesting. I find it interesting when someone's different from me. I find it interesting when someone is doing something I don't do. Then we have something to talk about. Then I can learn from them. Then that opens up a whole new interesting thing, a whole new world that I never knew. He's like, I find that more interesting. And I was like, whoa, wait. You actually don't want us to be the exact same? I don't have to be the exact same as you? That took a long time for me to wrap my brain around that. Why wouldn't he want someone the same as him? Isn't that compatibility? Even with the personality thing, I was trying to make myself very proper and a little more subdued and mature, like how he comes off for the most part, even though he has the silly moments. I was holding all this stuff in. I was trying so hard to be something that I wasn't. And so for me to just let it all out and allow myself to be goofy and weird and talk like how I actually talk, it was a relief and it was healing for me. And so no dynamic actually shifted between us in that sense, other than me realizing there's nothing wrong with me. Maybe it's actually fine that I talk the way that I talk and the way I act the way that I am. Maybe it is fine. I don't have to change my personality or my voice for me to be attractive to somebody else. I don't have to be the exact same. I don't have to match every single thing that I think that they want. So that was very interesting to me. I think the biggest shift is that I feel more attractive. I feel more self-confident. I feel so much better about myself now that I am letting myself be more of who I always knew I wanted to be inside. I always knew inside that I didn't want to be talking like this and always just trying to be more feminine than I am. I knew I didn't want that, but I always thought that I had to just change it. But now that I'm not, and I'm being the way that I want to dress, I'm expressing myself, I'm not holding things in, and I'm not afraid of having opinions. I'm not afraid of requesting certain things. I'm not afraid of being myself. And so that took away so much resentment in me. That took away so much tension in me. And so I'm better now. Yes, for myself, and yes, for the relationship, because our relationship works in this way, because we are both wanting to be independent and to go off and do our own things. And then when we do come together, when we do have quality time, it is quality time. It is not me over here trying to pander or trying to hide my emotions or having all this resentment or trying to figure out the right way to be. It is actually quality time. And so if anything has changed in the relationship, the biggest thing is that he has adjusted to me because I was becoming more of what I needed to be for myself. If it works for you, if it works for your soul, then that is really important. When you are in a relationship with somebody who is taking care of their own self-love or working on their own self-love, maybe they're not there yet, but if you're working on it together, that can make for a really good time. if you are in a relationship and they are not interested in working on their own self-love, they're not taking responsibility for their own self-esteem, their own happiness in life, and they're putting it on you. I have been in relationships like that, which is why I was so nervous to show my true self in this one. But I want to tell you that wherever that goes, because people can always change, right? We can always hope that they change. But no matter what happens in that dynamic, it will always be best for you to work on your own self-identity and your own self-love while in such a dynamic, so you can be strong and make the right choices and stand up for yourself and see clearly as possible when you're in a relationship where somebody is trying to keep you pleasing them. When somebody doesn't like when you are wanting to break free and have your own life. When they are trying to hold you down or shame you or control you when you are not going and pandering to them all the time. The best thing you can do is to work on yourself, because that's what I needed to do. I was stuck in relationships where even though my partner said that he loves me and wants the best for me, when I started to do things that were for me that no longer benefited him the way that he wanted me to do it for him, he would get upset. He would do things that would passively aggressively show me that he did not approve. He would be jealous of things. His words and his actual actions didn't match up. And so at the same time, I stayed. I could not leave because I was so still attached onto him, because I didn't have my own self-love and self-identity yet. So the best thing you can do in this situation is to work on yourself, to fortify yourself, because then you're going to work up the courage and the inner love to start to address what the problems in the relationship. And if you need to leave, you can start to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I know oftentimes it feels like you cannot even fathom leaving them. You're like, nope, that's just not an option. That I'm never going to leave them because I need them. I love them. They're everything. But if they're not treating you well, and if you are getting fed up, and if you know that they're holding you back from your own self, but you feel like you cannot fathom leaving, but you want to start to fathom the idea of leaving, even though it's really scary, you have to start working on your identity, your self-love, because the more that you do that for yourself, the more that you build up your own identity, the more that you're going to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And even though it's scary, you're going to go closer and closer to it and start to understand what you need to do to actually move forward. There are healthy relationships out there. There is someone out there for you, whether you're in the relationship now or if it's in the future. There's somebody out there for you who is going to want you to be yourself, who is going to love you for so much more than you being exactly like them and you pandering to them and you doing everything just so for them. There is so much more you're going to bring to the table once you are having your own identity and your own self-love. This is what I had to show myself. Now that I've experienced what it's like to be myself in a relationship, I am no longer going to find myself stuck in a relationship where my partner does not let me be myself or does not love me for me. This feels so much better than when I was performing for somebody else's love and approval, that I cannot go back. That if somebody starts to suppress me now, I'm just going to be like, nope, cannot do this. You're going to fortify yourself. You're going to experience what it's like to be on the other end and to see what it's like to be in a relationship that is healthy for you. And so you won't backslide once you start to do it right. And again, when I started this, I was in such a dark time. It feels scary. It feels like you're risking it all. But if you are willing to communicate and to work on adjusting and being in a healthy love, it is very possible. It is totally possible to be in a relationship where you just focus on living your own best life separately and then still come together and be present and loving and happy to be with each other. It doesn't always have to be you performing and you doing everything. A healthy relationship is to work on your own self-love separately and then come together. So finally, I just want to remind you again, how your partner reacts to your own self-love is a direct reflection of how they feel about themselves. If they want to work on having a healthy relationship with you, they have to understand that you are your own person, that you are not here to just take care of them and make them feel really good, but you're not allowed to take care of yourself and feel really good. Being an amazing partner isn't about just giving everything up and trying to be everything that they want. Experiencing healthy love is about being your own self, having your own life, and communicating with your partner and adjusting together, because that's what it is you have to stay the course long enough to get through all the discomfort, to do all the risky stuff, to face all the things that need to change and all the dynamics, all the old ways of doing things, and to stay in that long enough to emerge on the other side and finally have it be a way that is self-love and identity. And then you get to experience, oh, this is what they meant. This is what it feels like. Now I actually get to experience what it feels like. And once you experience that, there is no going back. It is very, very difficult to go back to your old ways. There's so many of my clients where they're like, I can't believe I was staying in that relationship because this feels so many times better. I could not ever go back to that old way. So if you need somebody to help you through this and to keep you on course, to keep you there and supporting you and coaching you through it, showing you the way through the darkness, long enough so you actually get to experience this, you break through on the other side and you know there's no going back, this is what I help you with. Come and book a consult with me. We can work together. I want you to believe in a healthy relationship for you. I want you to believe that it is fully possible to be your own unique, weird, fully expressed self and to have somebody love you for it. You do not have to be exactly the way that you think you need to be in order to earn love. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I will talk to you next week. Bye.